Hello, Kate.
Hi, how are you?
Very
Hello.
good.
I was watching this thinking, that's the interesting thing about a nature documentary. You think you're looking at reality, but you're looking at reality through the lens of somebody who's standing where we can't see them. So how odd was it for you to have, I don't know, probably Charlie practically living with you?
Oh, he was living.
How did that all work? How did he find out about the story and how was it captured?
So we love company. We love people. We enjoy people, and especially if they're nice people. And Charlie's an exceptionally nice person. So yeah, Charlie found out about the otter through a friend who was at our house, discovered that Molly was coming in and getting fed, and he contacted Charlie and said, "You need to come and see this." And Charlie came, liked what he saw, and then the rest, as they say, is history as far as the film's concerned. But we're quite lucky that we had a cottage here that we built an extension onto, and we just moved into the extension, and the cottage was empty, effectively. So Charlie lives in the cottage with friends, but there's a door between the two, and that door was used an awful lot as we came and went, and actually got to know each other on a much more intimate level because of that. So
I think from the beginning, we knew that Charlie would get the best footage living here. So there was no point in him living 20 minutes away and us phoning him saying, the otter's here, because by the time he got here, she would gone. So, you know, we said very much the word go, not knowing how long that would take, right enough, but knowing that for him to get the best, he needed to be right here.
So Charlie, did you become part of the family?
Yeah, I mean, we're all Billy, Susan, and Johnny, who's second camera, and I. We're very close. We have a group WhatsApp. We chat almost every day. So yeah, we're very close. And I think, I mean, as a male friend, Billy's one of my closest in the sense that, you know, men are not very vulnerable. They're not very good about talking about emotions,
Right.
but Billy's probably the person I talk to more than anyone else on that level. So I think, and that's all sort of grown up through, you know, making the film together. And I think, so yeah. So it was, you know, there was never a single cross word. I'm sure Billy and Susan had some behind my back, but there was never a cross word. We never got irritated. You know, it was just a really lovely time we all spent together. And I miss getting up at 5:30 in the morning, having my morning coffee in their kitchen, looking out the window. Yeah.
This plays out almost as the most heartwarming scripted little nature film you ever saw, except it's not scripted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's scripted in the sense, but it is scripted in the sense that
Molly didn't get a script. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. Yeah, I see what you mean. And as far as Susan's brilliant voiceover goes, it was scripted in the sense that we all sort of collaborated on that to make it more concise. But yes, sorry, carry on.
So, what was the challenge of crafting the whole story out of that pile of footage?
I mean, it kind of developed as we went because we let it tell itself. So, you know, and we lived it. You know, I think Johnny and I lived there over 6 months in total. And so we followed it as it happened. And then yes, you're right. At the end, we got a great big pile of footage. We got to turn into a story. But it was kind of, we worked on the script together and everything else while it was all still happening. So when we got onto the edit, we were in a pretty good place. We kind of knew what we wanted from it.
I think there was also things that we would talk. So the colored balls, when Billy bought the colored balls, I never. You know, I was telling that story, and then that worked its way into the film. You know, so yeah, it wasn't scripted, but it was a bit more scripted to make a bit more sense than me just
Right.
raising my eyes heavenward, doing the what on earth has he done now?
I gotta say, your voiceover was outstanding. I mean, I've heard a lot of scratch voiceover and professional voiceover, and some voiceover that should have been done by a professional. And it's top notch.
Thank you very much. It didn't start that way. I needed a fair bit of practice, but again, I think once I got into it and started to know that I was telling our story, it was much easier to do, rather than reading something, you know, as a voiceover. I was just telling our story.
When did you realize this was really about, it's really kind of a father-daughter story?
I think,
Yeah,
sorry,
Charlie.
Billy, you, no, you, come on.
I think so. How do I say this about me? I love animals. I love people. I love living things that I can interact with. It maybe sounds daft. Sometimes it sounds daft when I say it to myself, but it's true. I've got a lot of affection and a lot of love to give. I love my dog, our dog, and I love what I get back from it. So Molly was always going to be. The minute she showed any form of interaction and interest in us, she was always going to get loved to bits. And yeah, that wouldn't have changed. The father-daughter thing, nothing would have changed even if that other situation hadn't existed, but it did. And yeah, in some respects, I think the most endearing thing for me was bringing Molly to a point of allowing her to become the best version of herself that she could be, which is something you want to do for your kids. And then when she went off and had her own baby, that was the icing on the cake. Charlie, do you want to?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it wasn't there at the beginning of the filmmaking, was it? We sort of, it appeared, and we had a conversation, didn't we, Billy? I remember very clearly that conversation. Because as a filmmaker, I don't want to exploit that. I only want to tell it if it's true. And I think Susan and I will attest it probably is true. So, look at his face. No, I think that it was a very beautiful way of telling a story. And I think certainly from comments people have had afterwards, I think it was a very, actually quite a valuable way of doing it, and I hope we did that part of it sensitively enough. But we actually used Billy's words verbatim to tell that story. So yeah,
I did some research about otters in the Shetland Islands, and I guess they're quite the tourist attraction. And there's been some concern up there about how popular they are as a tourist attraction. So do you have any fears that next summer or this summer you might have one or two extra people come up to have a look at the otters?
Not really. It'll be what, to be fair, where Molly lives. So to access Molly, it's a relatively small piece of coastline, and she's not there a lot. She's away hunting. She's up in the loch. She covers an area.
Well, they might be coming to look at all the other otters.
They might, yeah. We have no control over that, and we just have to let be what is. But I don't think it will be a massive issue. It's not that easy to tell the location unless you know the area quite well, and local people are not going to share that easily. So I don't think it'll be a big issue. But hey, we'll give them cups of tea and sandwiches if they come and show them some love.
You can do that.
I think the other thing about otters is in Shetland particularly is, firstly, Shetland is very difficult to get to. And there's only a finite amount of people that can get there every year because everything's always booked up. I think secondly, it's actually very hard to see otters. You know, they're not easy to find. You know, you've got 1,000 miles of coastline and otters that are very shy. Molly's an exception. Most other otters in Shetland are not like that, are they? They're very shy and very difficult to see, and certainly very difficult to get close to. So I don't think it's going to be a problem.
I remember long ago reading about otters that because they are such outstanding hunters, they're so good at getting their dinner, that they have the luxury of something that very few animals have, which is leisure time. To mess around, to slide down hills, to play, to amuse themselves. And this is what makes them so appealing, is that they're not spending all day just filling their belly. They get that done, and then we're going to go have some fun.
Yeah.
With Billy.
With Billy.
Yeah.
She did exactly that.
We see all these people now moving to warmer climates, and yet Billy felt it in his heart he had to go back to the Shetland Islands. Now, to some people that's going to be a mystery, So explain, like, what is just the appeal of that place to you? Not just because you were born there, but like, what is wonderful about the Shetland Islands?
I think everybody has a bit of a calling to go home to their birthplace at some point, whether it's to stay or just visit it. Shetland it's almost an enchanting place. I don't know if you've ever read the book Call of the Wild by Jack London. Shetland has the call of the wild, and if you've lived here and been here, it's in your blood. And I think in maybe any Scottish island, I remember somebody saying to me, if you're born on an island, don't fight it, just go back, even if you only stay there for a couple of years. So I think that calling has always been there, and it was only a matter of time till at some point I would return to it. So yeah, in 2017, I gave up fighting it, asked Susan if she wanted to move up, and she went, yep, let's go for it.
Charlie, what was the most difficult bit of the filming? Because I'm watching the underwater filming. I'm like, oh, that's another whole world from how difficult it is to film animals on land to film things underwater. So what was your biggest challenge as a filmmaker? Because you obviously have great lead characters.
Yeah, I think, I think trying to create a sort of epic cinematic look of the film in an area that's, less than half a mile. And, almost the entire film's shot in this tiny little bubble. And I think,
wow,
as a cinematographer, I wanted to give it that epic look. And I think that relied pretty much on a huge amount of serendipity. The rowing boat scenes with Billy at dawn, I think, were the ones that, the film needed to just kind of lift it out of the ordinary. But to get those, part of being there for so long was to get those moments like that.
Thank goodness for drones.
Oh, I love them. And I remember the first time I tested the drone out on Molly, I was like, is she going to be scared of it? So I sort of gently flew it over the thing. She jumped up, tried to grab it. I thought, okay, she's not. So there was never a problem. Jade, on the other hand, doesn't like drones, but Molly never minded. She just absolutely ignores it. Yeah.
So Susan, as a wife, sort of what was this journey for you trying to support him in this new endeavor?
To begin with, it was a bit of a, oh, here we go. What are you getting more fish for? Does she really, do you need to do this? Because I am not, or wasn't, let me just say that I wasn't, I kind of am now. You can't beat them, you join them. But I wasn't a wildlife person myself. And so yeah, he kept going outside, and Billy's the type of person that if a hedgehog, he sees a hedgehog going across the road, he'll stop the car and get out and put it back on the side of that kind of thing. Whereas I wouldn't drive over it, I'll go around it. But so yeah, to start with, it's a little bit, yeah, here we go. But this creature gets under your skin quite quickly, and you can't help but actually love her, because she's nosy, she's very inquisitive, she's very playful, she's she will come and see what's going on. And we were sitting on the grass one night with just looking outside. We had friends up visiting, and I had a gin and tonic with a slice of lime in my glass, and I got up to go and refill folks' glasses, and she came over and took the lime from my glass. Now, she's very lucky that the gin was finished, but it's that inquisitive nature of her. You just smile. You literally just smile.
You might have had a drunk otter on your hands.
Yeah, you might have had it not been finished, but yeah.
So Billy, how's Molly doing these days? What's the news?
Molly's doing good. She had a baby a year ago, and she has now weaned that baby. She still comes for food pretty much every day, but Molly's a wild otter. She lives as a wild otter. She lives with her wild otter pals, hunts for herself, and she's passing the door. She pops in past and gets a fish. We think this is the breeding season. We know enough about her now to know her behavior. So I would put money on that she's been off mating, and we're hoping she might be pregnant again, and we're hoping that it might all happen again this year.
The shot of her flat on her back is like every pregnant woman is like, oh honey, I feel you. I feel you.
Totally.
What is the biggest thing you hope comes out of this? Any of you?
You know what? My mission was only ever to save the life of a wild animal and allow it to go on and be a healthy wild animal. So we've achieved that. The fact that the story is continuing because she keeps coming back now and again for food, it is a lovely byproduct. But for me, I think if people could just recognize that, you know, if you reach out to another human being or an animal and you give, the more you give, the more you receive. And there's a few unwritten laws that happen in the world. You sow what you reap. You reap what you sow. You get back what you give. And I'm not into karma and all. I mean, it maybe exists, but the more you give, especially when it's love and compassion, the more you get back. And for me, it would be
Love
lovely.
is not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, and if that message came across, that would be a lovely thing for me.